All right, welcome back. Today we are diving into a document that honestly lays out one of the most incredible, most audacious plans I think I've ever come across. It's basically a step-by-step guide for a complete and total global transformation. So let's get into it and break down what this source material calls the Liberation Plan.
So right from the get-go, the source material hits you with this: a vast plan to trigger enormous positive changes. I mean, that really sets the stage, right? This tells you immediately we're not talking about small adjustments or policy tweaks here. No. This is about a fundamental, planet-wide shift, the whole shebang.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with the Liberation Plan itself. The big picture. Then we'll look at the preparation and what actually triggers it all. After that, we'll dive into the Great Financial Reset, what a new society could look like, the idea of first contact, and finally, we'll wrap up with Ascension and evacuation. Let's get started.
All right, Section 1. So what's the core idea here? Well, according to this document, the problems we see in the world, they're not random. They're not just chaos. Instead, it frames our entire reality as a massive conflict, a battle between two very specific forces, and really, it's a high-stakes fight for the future of the entire planet. So here are the two sides of that battle. On one side, you have a group the document calls the Cabal. They're described as being behind extreme crimes, controlling the media. You get the picture. But then on the other side, you have the resistance. And what's really interesting here is how they're framed. This isn't some rebel army. Nope. It's described as an organized force that's working to legally arrest the Cabal and bring about justice.
And the text really hammers this point home. The goal here is a peaceful, legal process. It's not a military coup. That is a critical distinction. The whole idea isn't to have some violent overthrow. Actually, it's the opposite. It's to stop the violence and make sure that everyone involved, even the accused, gets a fair trial.
Okay, so if it's a legal process, how in the world does something this massive actually kick off? Well, that brings us to the next section, the preparation, and the all-important trigger that sets this whole thing in motion.
Right, so at the absolute core of this whole plan is something called the event. So what is it? The document says it's this unpredictable moment, a moment when a critical mass of what it calls light is reached on the planet. Think of it like a tipping point. It's not a date you can circle on your calendar. It's a spontaneous trigger that activates the entire plan on the physical level.
And the prep work is, well, it's pretty out there. It's described as a two-part process. First, they have to do this cleansing of the non-physical planes using this Mjolnir technology. You can think of it as like an energetic deep clean. Only after that is done does the physical part start. And it's kicked off by a signal from something called the primal source. Then you've got extraterrestrial groups, Pleiadians, Aldebarans, who are guiding the resistance agents on the ground. It's a huge coordinated effort.
Okay, now we're getting to the part that would affect literally every single person on the planet, almost instantly. I'm talking about the Great Financial Reset, a complete overhaul of the entire global financial system, and get this, it's all supposed to happen in just 10 days. So here's how it would go down, according to the plan. Day 1, the U.S. Federal Reserve defaults, and boom, that starts a chain reaction. Stock markets crash, banks fail all over the world. But at the same time, the Cabal's bank accounts are seized, and, this is huge, all public and private debts are frozen. We're talking mortgages, credit cards, all of it. Now, for the next 2 to 10 days, the banks stay closed, and the document does warn that there could be some temporary disruptions to things like food and energy. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds like chaos. And, well, yeah. But during this time, the plan is to use the media for something totally different. The idea is to take over the airwaves to release concrete proof of the Cabal's activities. So instead of confusion, the goal is to tell everyone exactly what's happening, and more importantly, why it's happening.
All right, so after that massive reset, the plan shifts gears. It's not just about tearing down the old anymore. Now it's all about building something new. A new society that, according to the document, is based on abundance and prosperity for every single person.
And how do you kickstart that new abundance? Well, the plan is pretty direct. The document claims that the money from those seized accounts is so huge that it will allow for an initial payment of 100,000 euros to every person. The idea is to just immediately give everyone enough money for housing, food, and a decent, comfortable life right off the bat.
And I mean, just look at the scale of the money we're talking about here. It's astronomical. You've got 70 trillion from positive military patriots, 100 trillion from the White Dragon Society and Templars, 120 trillion from the resistance movement, and another 50 trillion from the Saint Germain Prosperity Fund. These are numbers that are almost hard to comprehend. and it's all supposed to be released for humanity.
So, what's all this cash actually for? Well, it has a very clear set of goals. First, pay off all debt. National, public, private, gone. Wipe the slate clean. Then, compensate people for damages caused by the old system. And from there, you fund massive humanitarian and environmental projects. You finance incredible new technologies. And you support the people and projects that are helping with things like first contact.
And this is where you really see the long-term vision. The plan says that new technologies, especially things like free energy, will completely change how we live. I mean, think about it. The document projects that the average workday will shrink to just 3 or 4 hours. That would free up so much time for people to be creative, to learn, to just live.
Okay, so once society is stable, everyone's needs are met, the plan moves on to the next phase. And this is where things get truly mind-bending. We're talking about first contact, our formal, public introduction to our galactic neighbors. But this isn't going to be some sudden shock like in the movies. The plan details a very careful, very gradual process. It would start with initial contact with just a few chosen people. Then those contactees would go to the media and share their experiences, helping to prepare everybody else for the idea. It's a slow burn approach, building up to the big moment, an official, televised first contact event at the United Nations for the whole world to see. And that brings us to the final part of the plan, and honestly, it's the most profound part of this entire document. This is the end game, a long-term spiritual transformation, not just for us, but for the Earth itself. The text calls this the Ascension process, and it says this journey begins for every single person the moment the event happens. It's described as both an individual and a collective thing, almost like a spiritual software upgrade. The goal is to heal, release all the old blockages and baggage, and basically achieve a higher state of consciousness.
And as this process unfolds, the plan says that new kinds of communities will start to pop up, called islands of light. You can think of these as places where people who are really embracing this ascension process can come together, live in harmony, and basically create a blueprint for this new way of living on Earth.
But the plan's finale, it is truly on a cosmic scale. The document talks about a future planetary pole shift, one that's described as necessary, which triggers a massive global tsunami. But right before that happens, galactic fleets are supposed to show up and evacuate all of humanity and the animals too. After the Earth goes through this purification, only the beings who are fully aligned with this new consciousness will be allowed to come back. And for everyone else, the document says most of humanity will be relocated to a totally new planet in the Pleiades star system.
So, the document leaves us with this one final, absolutely staggering question. Is this whole liberation plan, is it just about Earth? Or, as the source suggests, is the ultimate goal the end of darkness and suffering for the entire universe? I mean, it's a vision that really pushes the boundaries of what any of us think is even possible.